Good evening and welcome. Are there any public comments before we get going? No? Okay, so we're going to start with public hearings. There are several, so I'm just going to keep it generic as I read this. There are a number of public hearings on land use applications scheduled tonight. Staff report has been prepared for each application. Has been made available to the public 7 days before the public hearing. The staff reports identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the Commission will follow is set out in state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the chart over there. Anyone wishing to speak should fill out a speaker's card and give it to the planning staff before the hearing. Speakers will proceed in the order in which their card is received. You should fill out your address on the card so the city will notify you of its final decision. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. A person may submit any written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, oversized poster boards, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is open. If they're not given to the staff, they will not be included in the record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Historic Review Board makes a decision which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised for the consideration of the City Commission or LUBA or both. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient specificity and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond, the issue will not be deemed appealable to the State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Because we have a few public hearings, we're going to hit a couple things for each one. So we're going to start with PC 20-06, HR 1906, an alteration for previously approved new construction in the Kenema National District at 704 3rd Avenue. Does any commissioner have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statements to declare?
No.
No.
No. No, I have not. However, I am a licensed real estate broker in Oregon, and in that capacity, I help citizens like you in the buying and selling of residential real estate. I have not been involved in any of the transactions that we're dealing with tonight.
Got it. Has any commissioner visited the site? I've been there.
Yes.
Yes. So for the record, all have visited the site?
All
okay. Sites, yeah. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the commissioners about these disclosures? Okay. We'll now commence with the planning staff report.
Thank you, Chair McLaughlin. I just want to preface by saying we have a full agenda tonight. We have written staff reports for all these items along with the plethora of information that was in the agenda, and so I'm not going to go through every detail of the projects during my staff report, but just give a summary of the main points, and then if there are questions, I'll take those, but I'll try to be brief so that we can get through all of the agenda items tonight in a timely fashion. So the first hearing is HR 1906, a modification to a previous approval for a single-family home in the Kanema district. So this was originally approved through HR 1809 at 704 3rd Avenue. This was a 1.5-story vernacular home that was approved in 2018. And it was just recently constructed, and it's almost finished. A few loose ends to tie up, I believe. So there were many conditions of approval that have been kind of checked off and met, but these two in particular are the subject of this application. One condition is that all railings, decking, and stairs should be finished to match the house body or trim. This is coming up because the original application did not specify the type of material that was to be used for the front porch and the front porch stairs. The applicant installed composite decking material on the front porch and stair, which is not a material that is approved automatically. And so because that was installed and it wasn't addressed in the initial approval, we need to see if the board is willing to approve it now. If not, then it would need to be removed and replaced with wood or some other material that the board selects. The second condition, the applicant shall be required to come back to the board for modification if the access to the front porch, front door requires a stair with more than 6 stair steps on the side or any number of front-facing stair steps. So the original application did not show any stairs leading to the front door. We anticipated, just because of the topography of the property, that there would actually be some stairs needed. And we were correct. And so the building permit drawings that were then submitted for this showed, I believe, 5 or 6 steps on the building permit drawings. And so it wasn't more than 6. And so the applicant didn't come back at that time to the board. But when the final construction was done, we saw that in fact there were actually 8 steps. And so this is being included in the application now for kind of post-construction approval by the board. So there's a picture of the composite decking material on the front steps, and that was kind of at a point where it wasn't fully finished. You see the side there isn't covered, but it is now. So regarding composite material, after this was approved in 2018, the board actually updated its policies on composite decking, and that allows for new or existing decks or porches less than 50 years old on the rear, side, or detached. Composite material is kind of approved, is pre-approved. So it's never pre-approved on the front of a building. It has to be approved by the board specifically, and so that's why we're here. And another other provision is that the color of it shall match the color of the structure. So this is new construction. It's not a designated historic building in the district, but the gray color matches the house well enough. So we're really just talking about the material here and whether or not it's appropriate. So there's a picture of the house from 3rd Avenue. And then from 3rd Avenue, where the driveway meets the street, the decking really isn't visible, even from this view. And so staff's recommendation on the composite decking is that, because it's so high above the street and it's not visible, the setbacks for this property are also pretty large, and there are no historic structures that are really nearby where it would be visible from other properties either. So staff's recommendation is to allow the decking material because it's not visible from any other property or from the right-of-way. Regarding the number of stairs, so you can see here, there's 2, and then a landing, and then 6 more. And a note on the perpendicular lattice work there, that I believe is still, it may have it by now, but should be painted to match as the condition requires, but that's not a topic of this. But that'll be something that we'll be looking for before we issue a final certificate of occupancy. So the design guidelines for new construction talk about exterior stairways at the front of a building are allowed only to give access to the main level, which they do, and they should be less than 5 feet in height. So as constructed, there are 8 steps. The total height appears to be greater than 5 feet, but we don't have an exact measurement for that. I don't think it's much more than 5 feet. And staff's recommendation on this one is kind of similar to the reason for the previous recommendation is from the street, it's really hard to tell how many stairs there are. The house doesn't appear to be overly large and tall, from the street. And so staff's recommendation is to, approve the number of stairs as well in this case. And that concludes my staff report.
What was the condition again? Was it five steps?
The condition originally was if it's more than 6.
6. And you're counting the concrete as steps?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Just so everybody knows, for public testimony, the applicant has 15 minutes. 5 minutes for representatives of a recognized neighborhood association, government agency, or other incorporated public interest organization. 3 minutes for individuals, 5 minutes for applicants' rebuttal. So, where's that clock? Oh.
In the middle.
Oh.
It's right there.
Oh, rock and roll. So, when that thing starts going, just like a traffic signal, that's your cue to, and I'll politely, stop it when it goes. So, okay. All right. So we can start with the applicant if they want to come forward and state their name and the city in which they reside, actually.
I'm not sure who the applicant is. Was it Mark or me?
I think Mark is listed as the applicant.
Oh, okay.
I'm applicant. My name is Mark Zawatsky. I reside in City of Portland.
My name is Ray Strides. I'm one of the owners of the property. I also reside in Portland.
Gotcha. Go ahead. Anything you want to say?
I don't know. The staff report, I think, put it, it's fairly, I think, hopefully easy. Mark used the decking material. We've used that before in other construction. Our own house, we found it lasts a lot better. It was even with cedar, good cedar. It just, especially the front steps there are going to get a lot of wear and a lot of and rain. The rest of the deck probably not as much. It'll be undercover, but still it's going to get wet and weathered. So that's why we prefer to use the Trek. And as far as we had a lot of issues. The driveway is so steep that it used to go up and go straight in, but it was just too steep a way. So we had to make it a little bit less, which meant that the drop down the driveway. If you go back to the picture, if you could put that up, the other one. Yeah, that one. You can see how the driveway is going up there. We used to be flat at that area, so at one time it would have been straight across, but we put a more of a slope, so it could be a gentler slope up the driveway. And even as it is, some people cannot get up it, and some trucks can't get up it. So that's why the extra 2 steps had to be put in there.
And have you had a final on this?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We need you to approve it first.
Yeah. But everything is fit. The house is ready for occupancy once we get that permit.
I just don't see a grab rail going down those stairs. That's what I was looking at for code.
On the other side?
No, right here. There's no grab rail. That's probably more of an issue than anything. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this for the applicant? No? Okay. All right, thank you. I don't have any testimony, so we can close this public hearing. Okay, it's closed. Does anybody want to make any comments or anything like that? Or talk about it or make a motion or anything?
I don't see a problem with it since it's a new construction. However, we were here meeting earlier this month about conditions that had not been met. And I'd like to maybe suggest a work session or something on how we can have conditions met that we have set. Just opening that up for discussion.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree that the condition to come back to the HRB if it's more than 6 is not intended to be after you've built the entire building.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, because why are we here otherwise?
I think I would underscore the need for anybody following the conditions of their permit that they actually pay close attention to what's in there. Sometimes there's more than what you think.
I'm looking at the elevation that was from the original application, and I would say since the height of the screening has been increased so significantly, that we would add a condition that some vegetation be planted in front of it.
In front?
Yeah.
To help screen?
I agree with that.
Yeah, that would be a good one to add.
Dark over there.
Okay. Anybody else? Does someone wish to make a motion with?
As I recall, this house was built on an existing foundation that was left over from a fire.
Oh, no. Looks old.
Yes.
So you were dealing with some fixed constraints there with regard to the elevation of the main floor.
Yes, it used to be actually 3 stories. I mean, there was a basement level, which is about where this is now. This is a little bit higher. The first level's a little bit sort of.
You got to come up front.
Sorry,
so we
they
can.
can't pick it up on the record.
You can come on back.
Yeah, but this was built on an existing foundation from the house before, which was a 3-story house, really. The first floor is sort of halfway between where the basement and first floor used to be. But that obviously did require us. There were some issues with using the foundation, engineering, and we met those. So,
Yeah.
Okay. Quick question: what is new construction? But what is the wall
That
or
setback wall.
yeah between the two?
in the back,
Yeah.
that's the elevation of the backyard. This is a very, I mean, even with.
So that's part of the original foundation?
That was part of the original. The garage and that wall are were existing even after the fire. Any other questions?
Nope.
So, and I'm sorry to address your question, kind of that with the stairs there, we didn't realize that the cement stairs were going to be an issue until after we had it built, and so at that point we realized, that I believe that Mark talked to Kelly and she said no, that needs to be approved. That'll be considered steps. We just assumed that was part of landing, so we didn't think that'd be steps.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve, hold on, I gotta put my eyeballs on. HR 1906 with the alterations for the new construction, and take the with the staff's recommendations.
I will second that. You were,
Okay.
you were embellishing?
No, was it about the landscape you said that?
Oh, yes, and to include additional landscaping in front of the screening. With
The
screening.
lattice.
The lattice work.
In front of the lattice work.
Yeah.
Shrubs,
I think it's 18.
I'm assuming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, evergreen.
1906.
Add, I'm gonna say at least 3 evergreen shrubs in
Sure.
front to screening.
Is there a second for that?
Yes, I will second that with the
With the addition.
addition, yeah.
Do we have a vote?
Sure, thanks.
Okay, I'll take it. Board Member Stobie,
Aye.
Board Member Met,
Aye.
Board Member Basinger,
Aye.
Board Member Blythe,
Aye.
Chair McLaughlin.
Aye.
Motion approved.
All right. The next item, HR 20-03 for major public improvement within the McLaughlin Conservation District at DC, what's it, Latterette?
DC Latterette, yep.
Latterette Park. Regarding this public improvement, this item, 3B, does any commissioner have any ex parte context, conflict of interest, bias, or any other statements to declare?
No.
And you will have to read the whole thing again because we have new people in the room that were not in the room previously.
They all have it memorized. They know what it is. Did people come in? Oh, okay. That's okay. It's always fun to read this. Okay. I'm trying to get us out of here quickly, folks. All right. There are a number of public hearings on land use applications scheduled tonight. The staff report has been prepared for each application, has been made available to the public 7 days before the first public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the commission will follow set out in state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the chart over there. Anyone wishing to speak should fill out a speaker's card and give it to the planning staff before the hearing. Speakers will proceed in the order in which their card is received. You should fill out your address on the card so the city will notify you of its final decision. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. A person may submit any written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written material submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, oversized poster boards, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is open. If they are not given to staff, they will not be included in the record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Historic Review Board makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised for consideration of the City Commission or LUBA or both without raising the issue on the record with sufficient specificity and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond. The issue will not be deemed appealable to the State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Okay, regarding 20-03 for a major public improvement within the McLaughlin Conservation District at DC Latterette Park, does any commissioner have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statements to declare?
No.
No.
No. No.
Has any commissioner visited the site?
Yes.
Yes. For the record, all of us have visited the site. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the commissioners about these disclosures? Okay, now we'll turn it. I will say now, public testimony, 15 minutes for the applicant, 5 minutes for the representative of a recognized neighborhood association, government agency, or other incorporated public interest organization, 3 minutes for individuals, 5 minutes for the applicant's rebuttal. And so I can turn it over to the planning staff now.
Okay. Thank you, Chair McLaughlin. This is Historic Review 2003 for a major public improvement within the McLaughlin Conservation District. DC Lutterett Park is not an individually designated historic site, but because this is a public investment in a park, we consider it a major public improvement that needs to meet the design guidelines for major public improvements in our historic districts. So this is almost a full city block, this park. It was originally the city's first municipal swimming pool, and then it was later filled in and became a sports court. The property, it's largely sloped, going from Madison to Monroe uphill. And so you can see that here, and it's mostly hardscape. The Parks Department has been working with the community to develop a renovation plan for the park. And so this is their kind of almost final design that we're looking at. There are two historic homes that are adjacent or just across the street, including 1004 Madison Street, which is on the same block. It's this property right here. And then 1002 Monroe Street, which is across the street. So the design guidelines for public improvements are, to avoid any highly modern, shiny metal kind of materials, use materials that would have been used or are compatible with historic materials. And to try to utilize landscaping and avoid, placing large equipment, modern equipment in highly visible locations. So the design includes a new nature play area up here, some refurbished walkways, some new site walls, a lot of new landscaping. No trees are proposed to be removed, but there is a significant amount of new landscaping proposed to be added. And the entryway is going to be modified with kind of new signage and a removal of some of the existing walls and fencing. So here are the renderings. This would be the new entryway. You can see some of the walls have been pulled back, and a lot of the chain link fence would be removed. So here's a comparison of existing and proposed. The only condition of approval that is currently recommended is just because there wasn't quite the specificity about what kind of materials would be proposed for the benches and the signage in the park. The condition is that the applicant shall ensure that all park furnishings and signage are made of natural wood, coated metal, and do not include obvious synthetic materials, finishes, or colors. And the only other issue is the use of cobblestone. So you can see there's a little bit of cobblestone proposed at the entryway. It's not proposed anywhere else within the park, just at that entryway area. And I am not aware of cobblestone being a commonly used material in Oregon City or in the McLaughlin district in the past. And so, we talk about in here when we're talking about alterations and new construction in districts that we don't want to fake history. So I wanted to try and find out more about how cobblestone was used in Oregon City, and so I reached out to Karen Morey, who then gave some email comments that were included in the agenda packet, and she said that cobblestones weren't used in Oregon City generally, and I think the information from the applicant is that there might have been some use based on, some family members that have some remnants of cobblestones from the city. But according to Karen, she doesn't think cobblestones were used in Oregon City. Main Street was repaved with bricks. There are a few old streets in McLaughlin that do have rounded stones, but they're remnants of old asphaltic concrete streets. And then she gave a timeline as well of when streets were paved and repaved, and she used two terms that I wanted to define here. Macadam was used, and that's small broken stones, and it's not the same as cobblestone. So that the macadam material was used in Oregon City, but it sounds like cobblestone was not common. So the plans don't really use cobblestone prominently. There's not much of it in the plans, but it is right at the entrance and highly visible, and so I kind of wanted to put it to the board to give some direction on whether you think that it's appropriate to use cobblestone in this case. And I believe the applicant had some alternatives already picked out that they would use instead. And the park staff is here to answer any questions. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for staff right now?
Is there any significant lighting? I don't see any in the rendering, but.
No, there was no lighting included in the plans.
Could ask that, I guess, yeah. Okay. Would the applicant or the representative come on up and state your name? You've got 15 minutes if you want to take it.
Good evening. My name is Denise Conrad. I'm the Assistant Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Oregon City. One clarification I would like to make is that on the rendering, it does show that we would be removing a lot of the chain link fence. And at this point in time, we actually would only be removing the front section where that entry point is to open it up. So the rendering is a little bit deceptive in that they didn't apply that there's a button that they did not apply to the rendering, which would continue to show that the existing wall is still there and that the chain link fence is only removed back to add that opening to the entryway. So at this point in time, due to budget constraints, we were not going to remove that chain link at this point in time.
Oh. So the walls, like in the rendering, aren't new walls, they're existing walls.
They're existing walls. It just was a button that did not get reapplied.
Gotcha.
And as far as the cobblestone, if that is a concern or an issue, we have looked at a couple of different products that we could substitute, and that would be to continue the concrete. Since we're already laying the concrete, it's a minimal cost for us to continue concrete where it applies cobblestone in the rendering. The other option we looked at is decomposed granite. And that would another tie-in to, there is some decomposed granite in the upper section. And it does come down that slope. So that slope cuts through a little bit into that main entry opening. And so I think they were looking to have a tractionary surface.
Will there be any lighting in the park?
We are currently not proposing any lighting as there aren't any existing. It's a small neighborhood park. Adding lighting does change the dynamics of the park.
Yeah, I gotcha.
And what is the current material of the planned cobblestones? Is it
that current rendering shows the cobblestone, and that is an item that they are proposing. is the cobblestone there.
Or what is it?
Oh, like material.
Like brick cobblestone, or is it
It's like a paver.
stone?
It would be like a paver.
Any other questions? Claire?
As far as the dog area, you know, where they have what's fenced in now and stuff, are they, because it's the upper areas where they have like a
It's not necessarily fenced in, and it was never
identified
designated as a dog area. It used to be a sport court.
Right.
And since, I think it was last year, they did a depave. And so a lot of that has been removed.
Okay.
So, but it was never an enclosed or designated dog area. It may unofficially be utilized that way, as is most of our parks.
Right. Okay.
Anybody else?
I have no questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there are some people who want to make comments. The first is Amy Russ, if you'd like to come forward and state your name and your residence or city for the record. And you've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, my letter's a little bit longer than that.
I'm sorry?
I said my letter's a little longer than that. Amy
My
Russ.
shot clock's only 3 minutes.
I hear you. I'll cliff note, how's that? I'm the property owner of 901 11th Street, which is literally across the street from the park. I've lived there for 15 years and utilize the park 3 to 4 times a day. I'm here because this is the first official notification I've received from the city that this park is changing, although I've heard of rumblings throughout social media and other areas. I've spoken with the former Parks Director, Phil Lewis, twice, once in person and once on the phone, and got the Parks Director equivalent of yes, dear, every time I talk to him. So I'm here to hopefully get a little bit of change for this park. So notification. I have 8 points. Notification was one of them. Second one is canine companions. As the new Parks Director mentioned, this park is used frequently for canine use. Although it's not officially a canine park, it is a perfect adaptation for those dog owners in the city. It is fenced on 3 sides, which makes it a great safety resource for those who have furry friends. And I know of several organizations who have used this as an ad hoc training facility on weekends when it's not being used for other purposes. It is fenced. Like I said, it's got 1 access point, which makes it very safe. In comparison, Barclay Park, which is only 1.5 blocks away, which is designated a dog park, is a much, much busier street. There is no fencing whatsoever. It just takes 1 errant frisbee throw and 1 car going fast to turn into a very, very bad situation. I do want to say that 64% of households in Oregon own a pet. 38% of those are dog owners, according to the U.S. household surveys. I was unable to get specific Oregon City specific data, but in contrast, Oregon Prospector 2019 census data shows that only 6.2 Oregon City households have occupants under the age of 5. And from the renderings, that appears to be what is the intended age of the play structure. If you move it up to age 9, only 12% of Oregon City residents would be affected by this play structure for humans, but 64% if you look at dog owners. Living across the property for 15 years, I use it literally 2 to 4 times a day and have seen that used primarily for dog use and for older demographic use. I also want to bring to attention that the hillside acoustics, I can stand on my front porch and hear conversations 2 blocks away. The way that this is designed we can hear every single ball bounce, every single celebratory whoop, every explicitive that comes out when they miss the basket. And I can only imagine that with the change in demographics of this particular park, it's only going to get worse as the younger demographic tend to shriek a little bit more than the current users. So those immediate neighbors are also going to be affected.
Well, thank you.
Am I done?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Next is Denise Mcgriff.
And she'll be speaking on behalf of the Neighborhood Association, so it'll be 5 minutes.
Is she?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry I didn't write that on there.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, is it a personal or is it from the neighborhood?
Well, the reason that I was asked to is that Karen Burig, who has been one of the advocates for Latterette Park and one of the leaders of it, works for the county and has a conflicting meeting tonight. So I have been the neighborhood representative to the Latterette Park Planning Committee since its inception. And what I wanted to say, so Denise Mcgriff, Oregon City, started out basically with community meetings that were held at the swimming pool that were an entire weekend. We've had, the group has had numerous activities at Latterette Park that were, I mean, you couldn't help but notice it because everybody in the neighborhood practically, except apparently this nice lady behind me, was not there. But it has been an ongoing community effort. It's been through the Parks and Recreations Committee meetings probably 24 times that I'm aware of, and I've probably been most to all of those meetings. What I can say about the effort is that it was community-driven, as you know, by a group of Girl Scouts who saw the park and said, you know, why is this in such a deteriorated condition? So it has truly been a grassroots effort from its inception, and there's been a lot of notices, social media, as was indicated, and every time there's been something before the Parks Board, Karen has tried very hard to get the word out. So I will say that most of the neighbors around Latterette Park have been involved in one way or the other in many different aspects. We've had some fundraisers there. We've had some community events there. Former Director Phil Lewis had been an integral part of working with that group, and my role basically was to represent sort of the neighborhood association and attend the meetings and provide our input. I will say that from my professional historic expertise, that Karen is correct. Cobblestones were not something that was used. If it's a paver that is simulating cobblestone, maybe the suggestion is that it not have a rounded edge, it just be flat and just be pavers. But in Portland, of course, pavers are everywhere. As I know, when I did a couple of streetscape projects, we dug them up along with the old railroad tracks, the trolley tracks that used to run down Grand and MLK. And the city, of course, confiscated every single cobblestone to use for some other uses. But we did not really traditionally use those here in Oregon City unless somebody, as was stated, gathered them up to put them in their yard. So I think that the concern about cobblestone is probably very appropriate because it was not traditionally used. I think that what I want to say on behalf of the neighborhood and on behalf of the Latterette Army folks is that there's been a lot of work that's gone into this. There's been a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of review by people all over the community, not just people in McLaughlin, but other neighborhood associations have participated. And I think that this is going to be a really good thing. The one thing I can say, too, about the group is that they have secured funding outside of the city's processes to help fund some of this. So some of the plans and designs were secured through the National Park Service with their expertise getting funding. They've secured some Nike funding, some other service club funding. So, I mean, it's really, really, really been a community-driven effort. And, you know, it's unfortunate if some people did not know what was going on, but I know there's been a lot of activity. I myself participated in the D-Pave project. I don't know if you're aware of that. Basically, a group came in, cut concrete, and we schlepped it out of the park. And we're talking slabs bigger than this table that we lifted and moved, and to get some of the concrete out of the park. And that was the day that we had the deluge, that we saw how the drainage worked in Latterette Park, and it flooded basically. But it was quite interesting. It's been interesting on the different projects that I participated in, including the intersection painting, which is also part of the Latterette Park project. If you have any questions about the neighborhood's involvement or our our recommendations or any concerns that we've had over the time that we've worked with that group, please feel free to ask.
Okay. Questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your support.
Yep. Would the applicant like to come and rebut any comments? No? Yes? No?
It's probably fair to say that Phil Lewis was integral in this project, and I'm just taking it over in the last few weeks. So as far as the number of communications that were out there for notification of this, there were an innumerable amount of public events out there. The neighborhood association has updates through their meetings, and I know that we've tried to have this within the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee's agendas as well. So there's lots of public opportunity that this project has been out there for a while.
Can I ask you when that process started?
I know that Scott Archer, who preceded Phil Lewis, was working on this project. So it's been 4 or 5 years of project timeline.
And then it is accentuated in speed in the last how long? Or is
I think that the 90% drawings came back about the time that Phil Lewis left, and from that point on.
When was that?
Just recently.
Okay, gotcha.
I think he's only been gone for a couple months.
Okay.
So that project has turned over to the interim Parks and Recreation, Community Services Director, and then I have been working on it for the last few weeks with Greenworks, who's the architect firm. And so at that point, once it was turned over to me, we've proceeded to move it down the line with planning and the review process. And
got it. Okay. I was just curious on that. Anybody else have any questions?
Are there any plans for a second phase or a separate project that might remove the chain link fence?
those are always opportunities down the line. Our budgets are extremely tight, and we have, as you can see, this park, an extreme amount of deferred maintenance. So it would have to line up within the priorities. It's not out of the realm of the foreseeable future. However, at this point in time, it is not currently budgeted.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then I'm going to close the public hearing, and the board can deliberate or talk or anything.
I didn't see one.
I do have a question. You know, we have a lot of properties on the agenda tonight. Now, was there a blue and white sign posted there? A land use? There was?
A land use application.
I didn't see it.
I don't remember seeing it, but I don't.
I know that they were picked up from our office to be posted on the property. Okay. One on each block. So since there are 4 street frontages, there are 4 signs made and posted, as far as we know. Yeah, we have an affidavit signed by the applicant.
That they were posted.
That's our standard, is that when they post it, they sign an affidavit saying that they posted it.
I don't remember.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody have any comments?
Do we have any, we were given this, did everybody get a chance to read it?
I guess I share the opinion expressed by the neighborhood association that given the current condition of the park, improvement is necessary.
I do have a concern.
And I think the process has been properly followed along the way.
Do you have a question, Ray?
Well, I have a concern with the improvement in the park. I believe it is going to increase traffic, and it appears there hasn't been a traffic study done. Has there been any? apparently there hasn't been a third party, but I do have a concern about the traffic in that neighborhood once the park is finished.
Well, I suspect there was quite a bit of activity when it was an active park, and people do use it. I just wonder,
Street parking.
And it appears, I mean, I've driven by this numerous times. There's street parking all around it. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it'll definitely be reinvigorated and used. Does anybody have any comments on the cobblestone or
I think I would go with the recommendation of the decomposed granite as an alternative.
Yeah.
Not
I
sure
agree with that.
granite does that, but
Is there a difference between cobblestone and pavers? If they're both concrete. Pavers are,
Is the wall around the the two stacked wall or whatever? What is that? Is that just like concrete that's been?
I think it's concrete.
Or is it like stacked like basalt or whatever?
Yeah, kind of looks like rock.
Yeah.
But you can, if you want to answer that, real quick.
Sorry, Denise, you have to coming back up.
So would you like to reopen that public hearing?
Sure, we can open it to the applicant.
So my understanding is they are going to reutilize what they pulled back from the existing wall back into the entryway points, and then they'll use concrete where necessary.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, back of the.
But the wall that's around that little old wall, sub-wall, what is that composed of?
The intent was if they could reuse.
Well, she's asking what the material is. Is it stone? Is it concrete?
It's the existing wall stone. If you can look up where the existing wall stone is,
Right.
they're going to pull that back probably a panel and a half or so, and so they're looking at reusing those stones that are in the existing wall.
So it looks
as
like
much as
For that entry area?
For the entry area, correct.
On the back part, or I mean the back where the sign is and everything.
Right. Their intent is to try and utilize as much as possible and or match what they can.
Cool.
Got it. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Thank you.
No.
All right. Then I'm going to close it again. Okay. It kind of looks like stone here, but on the back, it's like
Concrete.
Yeah. Like it started
Maybe
as that, or they faced it or something. Yeah.
Oh, once it got higher, back in the back there.
Yeah. Kind of looks that way, or
Yeah.
transition for retaining.
Right.
Anybody have anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the cobblestone being a natural stone material rather than a manufactured paver, it would probably be appropriate. And then as far as maybe, I don't know if it's necessary, but a clarification that, I don't want to get in the way of progress or anything with the chain link, it's already there, but since we don't allow it in the design guidelines, that we're not approving it as part of the design, we're just not forcing them to remove it as part of the project, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So I don't know, perhaps specify that no new chain link be added.
You can make that a condition, yeah?
Yeah.
If someone wants to motion.
I think that's a good.
I move for approval of the design as proposed with the conditions that the paving stones be replaced by a natural and
decomposed granite.
A natural material consistent with historical uses in Oregon City.
To clarify, would that include the decomposed granite or the concrete? Both of the options that were presented by the applicant, which is either concrete or decomposed granite?
That's a subjective matter there. My personal choice would be the decomposed granite, but
I think
that's
so
not
too.
my decision to make.
Well, plus it makes it a little bit more of an entry, different from the rest of the concrete.
You can make that a
But
condition.
you can make the motion with one of those conditions, and if we don't,
So I will state it then as a condition of approval that we use the decomposed granite as an alternative to the pavers
The fence?
I know.
You want to say anything about the fence?
or cobblestones.
I know.
Did you want to say, make a condition regarding the fence?
And a condition regarding the chain link fence to clarify that the old fence is grandfathered in, but no new chain link fence will be used.
Right, so just to clarify, motion is to approve with the recommended conditions plus a condition for no new chain link and a condition to change the cobblestone pavers to decomposed granite.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And I do want to just point out that if the Parks Department were able to, in the future, find the budget to remove the rest of the chain link fence, that's something that just could be approved at a staff level, and it wouldn't have to come back to you, and so we don't really need to address that part of it.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Would someone like to second that?
I'll second that.
We have a vote, please?
All right. Board Member Blythe?
Aye.
Board Member Basinger?
Aye.
Board Member Met?
Aye.
Board Member Stobie?
Aye.
Chair McLaughlin?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Laura,
Yes.
am I going to have to read this again? Other people have come in?
You want me to answer?
I just noticed some people came in.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. Okay, because we have two more public hearings.
Yeah, wait a minute till
Lock
Bill
the
gets in
door.
here.
Yeah, lock the door. All right.
Also, we should be able to do that.
We have a number of public hearings on land use applications that are scheduled tonight. A staff report has been prepared for each application, has been made available to the public 7 days before the first public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the commission will follow is set out in the state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the chart over there. Anyone wishing to speak should fill out a speaker's card and give it to the planning staff before the hearing. Speakers will proceed in the order in which their card is received. You should fill out your address on the card so that the city will notify you of its final decision. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. A person may submit any written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, oversized poster boards, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is open. If they are not given to staff, they will not be included in the record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the Historic Review Board makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised for the consideration of the City Commission or LUBA or both. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient specificity and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond, the issue will not be deemed appealable to the state Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. As a note, public testimony is 15 minutes for the applicant, 5 minutes for representatives of a recognized neighborhood association, government agency, or other incorporated public interest organization, 3 minutes for individuals, 5 minutes for the applicant's rebuttal. Regarding HR 19-08, historic review for demolition of a non-contributing structure in the Kenema National Register District. Does any commissioner have any ex parte context, conflict of interest, bias, or any other statements to declare?
Nope.
Nope.
No.
No. Has any commissioner visited the site?
Yes.
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 Been there.
For the record, all commissioners have visited the site. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the commissioners about these disclosures? Okay, I'll turn it over to the planning staff.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this is a review for demolition of a non-contributing structure in Kenema, 616 4th Avenue. This is a ranch-style, some might call it minimal traditional home that was built circa 1950, which is outside of the period of significance for Kenema. That is 1850 to 1928. So structures built between 1850 and 1928, mostly that are still around, are considered contributing to the district. Some of them have been so altered beyond their original that they're considered non-contributing, but anything built outside of the period of significance is typically non-contributing, and then it can be considered compatible with the district or not compatible. So this home is considered compatible with the district, but it doesn't contribute to the historic character of the district. So the existing home is about 800 square feet. It is on Block 14 in Kenema, which is made up of 4 50 by 100 lots of record. And it straddles the property line of 2 of those lots. And Apperson Street there is an unimproved street. The site is accessed by a gravel driveway that comes up parallel with 4th Avenue and then curves up into Apperson Street right-of-way there. So there are 2 homes neighboring the property that are contributing to the district. One is 702 4th there on the left, and then the other one is across the street, across 4th Avenue from the home. So the condition of the home is it's in disrepair, it's boarded up. We don't have pictures of the inside of the home, but as it is, it does not add any, I think, value or significance to the district based on just its condition. But as if it were to be renovated with the existing kind of structure there and the footprint, it could still be compatible with the district. And there's the back of it. And so the 1977 nomination, the original nomination for Kenema to the National Register, identifies this home as compatible, and the home was, of course, less than 50 years old at the time, so it wasn't really analyzed in depth. So the applicant has proposed to demolish the home, and the application discusses future redevelopment on the lots with likely one new home on each of the 4 lots of record, and that would, if future development does move forward, it would come to the board for review as new construction. criteria for demolitions is, considering the original reason for the designation of the district, consideration of the architectural style, the design of the structure, the effects of the demolition on the district, whether denial will involve substantial hardship to the applicant, and then the economic, social, environmental, and energy consequences. So the staff report has findings for all of the criteria, and staff recommend, generally because it's a non-contributing structure and it's in poor condition, staff recommends approval of this demolition. The board could consider a condition of approval for deconstruction rather than demolition. That was used in 2012 when the board approved the demolition of a historic landmark outside of a district that was in poor condition as well. That case is a little different because that was actually a designated structure, and this is a non-contributing structure. But I just wanted to share that information with you in case that was something you thought would be appropriate in this instance. But I'm not recommending any specific conditions at this time. That's all I've got.
Does anybody have any questions for staff? Okay. Would the applicant like to come forward, please, and state your name and your city of residence?
Levi Morshon, and I live in Milwaukee.
Okay. All right. Anything you wish to add to that?
Well, I guess just that, we're wanting to take it down because it's encroaching on 2 lots. It's, the inside's just sheetrock. There's no floors. So it would take a lot to try and bring it up for any kind of, livable structure. So down the road, we're thinking of possibly just starting with 2 houses on the 2 front lots. And so that's just kind of, an 800 square footer that takes up 2 of them.
Mm. Yeah.
Not much else.
It's a sweet place.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to live there.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for the applicant? No? Thank you.
Yeah.
We don't have any comments on this one, so I'm gonna close the public hearing and let the board discuss or make a motion, or if anybody has any questions or issues.
I think for expediency, I'll move that we approve HR 1908, the demolition of a non-contributing structure in the Kenema National Register District.
Would anybody like to make a
I'll second that.
Second? Can we have a vote, please?
All right. Board Member Stobie?
Aye.
Board Member Met?
Aye.
Board Member Basinger?
Aye.
Board Member Blythe?
Aye.
Chair McLaughlin?
Aye.
Motion approved?
Thank you.
Quick.
That property has looked like that for the entire time I've lived in Kenema, since 1997.
200 years?
200 years.
Wow, that baby's old. Okay.
I didn't see anybody new walk in this time.
I did. I saw 2 people come in.
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw 2 people too.
We have one more public hearing, and I have to read this again because 2 more people came in, I believe, for 3D. There are a number of public hearings on land use applications that are scheduled tonight. A staff report has been prepared for each application, has been made available to the public 7 days before the first public hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to each applicant's proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria which are contained in the staff report. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the commission will follow is set out in the state law and the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the chart over there. Anyone wishing to speak should fill out the speaker's card and give it to the planning staff before the hearing. Speakers will proceed in order in which the card is received. You should fill out your address on the card so the city will notify you of its final decision. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name. Testimony and evidence should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. If you believe other criteria apply in addition to those addressed in the staff report, identify and discuss those criteria and explain how and why you believe they apply to the application under consideration. A person may submit any written material while the public record is open on each application. Any written materials received by the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record. Written materials submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the record. If a person intends for PowerPoint presentations, oversized poster boards, reports, pictures, or other exhibits used in their oral testimony to be placed in the record, copies must be submitted to the city staff while the record is open. If they are not given to the staff, they will not be included in the record. Any person wishing a continuance to present additional evidence and testimony or to keep the record open to respond to new evidence must make that request before the public testimony portion of the hearing is closed. If the historic reviewer makes a decision in which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised for the consideration of the City Commission or LUBA or both. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient specificity and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond, the issue will not be deemed appealable to the State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in the circuit court. We will now, I'll say it again. Public testimony, 15 minutes for applicant, 5 minutes for representative of a recognized neighborhood association, government agency, or other incorporated public interest organization. 3 minutes for individuals, 5 minutes for applicant's rebuttal. We will now open the record for HR 20-02, historic review for a new two-story mixed-use building in the McLaughlin Conservation District at 920 7th Street. Does any commissioner have any ex parte conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare?
No.
No. Nope. No.
Has any commissioner visited the site?
Yes.
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 All of us have, for the record. Does anyone in the audience wish to question any of the commissioners about these disclosures? Okay, I'll turn it over to staff.
Thank you, Chair. And that is the last time you'll have to read
Yes.
that, even if people come in.
Dang straight.
No more public hearings after this one. So this is HR 2002, new two-story mixed-use building in McLaughlin at 927th Street. So this is the site of old Olson's Pharmacy that was standing until maybe 2012 or so. And so that the site currently looks like this, just kind of a pad, concrete pad, and one side wall. But this is the Olson's Pharmacy building before it was removed. And here's the view from the side street here. So there are two historic properties, designated properties next door across the street. One is the church house, which is directly adjacent on 7th Street. And then another is the Far store that's right across the street on the other side of 7th. And that's a better picture of the church house. And the applicant has proposed a design that is based on the church house design. And so the design kind of style was taken from that house. So the proposed new building is 2 stories. It will take up almost the entire lot here. And then there's an existing parking lot back on the other side of this alley. That would be used to serve the building. That parking lot's already there. There might be some minimal improvements made, but that's not the subject of this application. Because this is a commercial building, it also has to go through site plan design review, which is a staff level review in the planning department, and that application has not been submitted at this time. So they're going through historic review first to get the design approved, then the site plan design review would come later. This particular property has already been through that process for a very similar building. That was in 2012. For a 3-story structure, and then in 2014 it was modified to a 2-story structure, was approved by the board again, but then it never moved past that stage in the permitting process. And so now we're back 6 years later with a very, very similar building. A few little changes have been made. So here's the front facade. It is reminiscent of the church house next door with the kind of 2 bays there. So it's proposed to have commercial space on the ground floor, and then residential units above, and then the back half of the ground floor would also contain residential units for a total of, I believe it's 13 residential units. So we have the side elevations, and we can go back and look at these as needed, and then the rear elevation there. Floor plans, you can see the commercial space here along 7th at the corner of 7th and Monroe. I believe 5 units here, and then 8 more units on the 2nd story with a couple of deck areas. I think that appear to be shared spaces. Because the design is based on the neighboring church house, which is a Queen Anne, so we have kind of a streetcar commercial design on the ground floor, and then a Queen Anne / vernacular type of design on the 2nd story. Now, the design guidelines don't really speak to situations of where you have a mixed-use building. It kind of calls for either streetcar commercial for commercial buildings, or a completely different style. But the applicant has chosen to kind of mix a streetcar commercial ground floor with a vernacular or Queen Anne kind of style on the 2nd floor, and base it off of this neighboring structure. And so the design guidelines don't really give us full guidance in this case, but I will say that one of the original, in the previous approval, the board approved the structure with bay windows here to mimic the bay windows on the church house. So let me pull that up. So the bay windows actually are on the ground floor. And, there's a lot of Queen Anne detailing on this building, and there's not nearly as much Queen Anne detailing here, I think, which is fine. That's appropriate. But if we are going to call this Queen Anne, then I think the applicant might add some more Queen Anne elements, because right now all we've got really is the detailing in the gables. So I do have a condition recommended that the applicant should provide more Queen Anne elements, such as either bay windows up here, more ornamentation, and the board might have comments on what that might be, or an increase in the roof pitch to 10/12, because right now I believe it's shown as 8/12. Which it kind of looks the same in the drawing, but this church house, I believe, is at 10/12 or greater.
Kelly?
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
If someone like the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association asks for a continuance, do we go through with all of this, or do we? We
don't have to. I'm not sure, based on all the correspondence and the emails that were included in the revised agenda, I'm not sure if the continuance request is going to be
I mean, I'm just going off of the
rescinded?
emails that were here that they requested.
So yes, we did receive a request for continuance. The applicant told me that they would like to make their presentation to the board and go through the process at this hearing, knowing that the board might not be able to make a decision.
I don't know that that would be required if a continuance has been requested, that has to be honored.
It has to be honored, so we know that if the continuance request stays and it's not,
There would be no need for the applicant or anything, correct?
Well, right, so the board would not be able to make a decision, but the applicant requested that, knowing that the board can't make a decision, they wanted to still be here to, go through the hearing process, but just delay the decision until
But if it's a continuance, would that happen at that later time?
It can happen either way. So you can, do all the rest of the portions of the public hearing now, or if there's continuance, then you can wait till later.
I'm only asking, I appreciate everything you're saying. I'm just wondering if it's going to be redundant if we're doing that with a continuance.
So if we go through it all this time, and then continue it, then at the next meeting, we don't have to rehash everything. We can just go straight to deliberation and the vote, or you can choose to save all of it for later. So that's kind of up to you, but the applicant has requested to make their presentation tonight. And I believe there are people here to give testimony.
Okay. All right, I apologize for interrupting.
No, that's okay. Sorry, I should have said that.
It popped in my head, and I thought, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay,
same thing.
And then you just said the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have mentioned the continuance from the get-go. So should I continue then? I'm almost finished.
Okay.
There are a couple other conditions about the floor heights. The guidelines call for a 12-foot floor height on the ground floor, and then 10 feet for any other floors. And then everything else, all the other conditions are straight from the guidelines. It's just based on details that have not been yet provided in the application. So these are addressing all of those details about materials and design and paint schemes, but nothing out of the ordinary. And John, it did catch the shakes, so we have a special one in here for you for the shingles that are straight across and not jagged.
Classic.
So that's all I've got. And of course, my recommendation is to continue unless there's some change to that request that's made during this hearing.
Got it. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for staff or does anybody want to make any comment about the continuance?
I think we need to at least give the people that showed up the opportunity to give their public comment here, since they might not be.
Showed up.
Okay, then let's go ahead with the applicant. If you can come forward, state your name and your city of residence.
My name is John Delson Engineering, and I would like to...
And what's your residence, sir?
I'm sorry?
Where do you live?
Vancouver, Washington.
Vancouver, okay.
Yeah. So as Ms. Kelly Ray said, that very similar, almost identical design has been approved in 2012 for 3-story, and then 2014 for 2-story, and we basically replicate the same details and the same style, and without any modifications. And talking about the requirements for the heights, we think that this would be more appropriate, so we don't go above the existing building. with 3-story or even 2-story, and we would prefer, if we can, reduce the main level from 12 feet to 11 feet, and the upper story for residential purpose just 8 feet. This will dictate the less mass. Of course, we will reduce the cost of the construction as well, and we feel that this will be sufficient. And as I say, the roof line will not go much higher above the existing building, which is basically 2-story. And so the owner is inclined to go with this version of the 2-story. And as I say, the appearance is very similar. We produce a 3D rendering. Scully, I don't know if we can show this. And so this is like a computer generated using the colors from Sherwin-Williams that the owner would like to use, natural and earthly colors. But the roof line, if we do on the computer everything black, it's difficult to see the roof line. So that's why we created the second version. It's by hand, more artistic view, showing the roof lines and a lighter color to see the shape of the building. Yeah. And of course, the colors can be adjusted according to requirements. But another thing I would like to highlight, the existing building with the bay windows. When it was designed, as far as I know, there was no consideration whatsoever for seismic requirements. And currently, of course, we have to deal with the very high life safety issues and seismic requirements. And these bay windows will drive the cost of the construction tremendously, and will not be necessarily fitting with the neighbors' buildings, as well as the purpose of the building, the commercial use from the corner of the 7th and Monroe, because the side of the front building will be used for deli, and the other side will be for laundry, primarily for people occupying the building, but it will be public laundry as well. So this will be the commercial use of the building. Yeah. So those few items I would like to highlight or address. The
yellow car is that?
The height of the roof.
The Countach, the Lamborghini?
Look at this one.
I'm sorry?
I was saying, whose yellow car is that? Yeah,
I'll take the 34 full.
I was going to do the one in front of the church.
Yeah, thank.
Now, on the left side, there is a parking lot, but we just show one car, sporty car.
Yeah. Gotcha.
We cannot say exactly what car will be.
Pantera.
Okay.
Fine.
All righty. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. What is the setback from the property line?
Yeah, this is a good question. So as the site plan indicates, we keep the same line of foundation.
So it's right on the property line?
No, it's 3 feet from the property line. And actually we propose increase by 8 inches because there is existing wall. As we can see from the picture, there's existing 8-inch concrete wall, which we intend to remove the wall. It was serving at one time, but of course there was different building, a different purpose, and the wall was braced at the top with the roof and the interior walls.
Right.
Now everything is gone. This wall is freestanding and presenting hazard for the public safety. It's under design. The appearance is just it's distressed and it's in really bad shape. So and of course cannot be reused for the new construction.
Right.
So we will step back 8 inches additionally. But where we have the opening window or door on the neighbor side, then we will step 5 feet from the property line to avoid the fire separation.
Space in between the two buildings?
Correct.
That you don't
to
need
avoid
to have
fire
like
separation.
A fire
That's right.
retardant wall or
yes,
something?
Yes, 5 feet is a typical normal minimum requirement setback. So we don't have to deal with one or 2 hour construction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are talking about this wall, that we intend to remove this wall and step about the thickness of the wall with the new foundation. There is possibility that we can reuse actually this portion of the commercial side of the foundation, if it is approved by the city, of course, if it meets the current code for what we try.
It just seems so close.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else?
No questions.
No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
There are no public comments on this. So, oh wait, timeout. 3D. I do have one. I think it was Wendy Marshall. I'm sorry. I have a lot of these.
Yeah.
If you could state your name and your city of residence.
Good evening, board and staff. I'm Wendy Marshall. I reside at 115 Madison Street, but I'm speaking on behalf of McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. First of all, it'll be great to see this corner improved after all these years. However, the Neighborhood Association, we feel like we haven't been presented the materials for review, and maybe a question for Kelly. You're showing some slides up there which are not on the website. So the website is the GLUA 2006 and then the HR, but what is on there doesn't have the front elevation with the church building beside it. So I feel like what's on the website seems incomplete.
Yeah, those were received later. They were received, of course, before this meeting, but not when the notice was first posted.
Okay, and you provided us by email some of the older applications. So it looks like, we feel like the application, like I said, we haven't had a chance to review it, and that's why we decided that our continuance would hold, and if the questions got answered tonight, then we could remove our continuance. But so we don't have the materials. We have some emails that have been provided. Everything seems to refer to the prior applications, which were 6 years or more ago. And in the application that's on the website, the materials, the application has several responses that are blank. And then it does refer to pictures, but those aren't included. And then you had some conditions of approval. We haven't seen any of this, so we don't feel like we have our concerns answered enough to talk about this. The more specific things, one of the responses on an item number 2 in the application states that 7th Street parking lot, but there's not a parking lot on 7th, so that's confusing. They talk about matching neighbor style, and we're not sure. It sounds like from Kelly's presentation, the intent is to match the church property. It's not very specific in the application, but they're not supposed to be mimicking and copying another building. It should be compatible, but not a copy of it. Public improvements, it sounds like maybe that's going to be decided with the site plan review. Okay, so I don't know if there's anything we need to discuss on that. And the pre-app notes should also be part of an application, so I have not seen the pre-app notes. So that's another thing we'd like to see if it's relevant. Provided that. And yeah, the materials that are on there, it seems like everything, like I said, is based on the old applications that were a remodel of that existing building. But we feel like this is all a new application, and you can't base it on the prior applications because the wall has been determined that it's going to go away. It's dangerous and it's going to go away, so there is no pre-existing, the codes that allow you to keep a wall and build based on that. So they would need to look at this as a brand new construction with nothing on the site because the wall has to go away. So the setbacks and everything like that would be not based on what used to be there. And also it looks like, if you look at OC maps, and I know that's not accurate, I'm concerned that the church building actually encroaches on the subject property a little bit. It's a little catty corner. And I don't know how that affects the setbacks or anything like that. And yeah, the applicant described setbacks of 8 inches and the 5 feet based on prior conditions, but I really don't know what those measurements are because we don't have a prior condition now because everything's gone, or the wall will have to be gone and not part of the development. So I don't feel like our concerns have been answered yet, so we would like to keep the request for continuance so our neighborhood association can review the proper materials and everything that's relevant.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Thank you.
No, I heard that. Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. All righty, then I'm going to close this hearing. Anybody have any comments or?
I don't know, do we need a motion on the continuance?
Yes.
Doesn't it stop now that they request?
Do you need to
I think it stops.
certain?
Probably next
Date certain.
next board meeting, I guess.
For February 25th.
That's right. February 25th.
Yeah. So is that a motion?
Yes.
Okay, does anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
Okay, or whoever. Can we call for a vote?
Board members, Toby?
What's that?
Oh,
For continuance to the date certain of February 25th?
yeah.
Board member Met?
Aye.
Board member Basinger?
Aye.
Board member Blythe?
Aye.
Chair McLaughlin?
Aye.
Motion approved.
That concludes the public hearing portion of this meeting.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to take a break, unless we want to do this one and then take a minute break. Why don't we do this real quick? The next item.
Sure.
Staff concurrence roofing and skylight on new construction in the Kenema District, 413 4th Avenue.
So staff concurrence is a, that's okay, kind of an informal process where I make a staff level decision and I bring it to the board just for confirmation when I'm slightly uncertain about whether that should be a staff level decision. So I bring it to the board and then you all have the opportunity to tell me, nope, that's not a staff level decision. We think it needs to be made by us, or yep, sounds good. You go ahead and make that staff level decision. So this is a new home being constructed in Kenema. It was approved by the board several years ago, and now the builder owner is requesting a so here's, try to talk in the microphone. Here's what was approved originally, and the applicant is requesting a skylight be added. Oh, that looks a little small, doesn't it? Right here on the roof. So this is 4th Avenue. This is the garage. And so the skylight would be added here, so that was not included in the original application. We felt that it could be a staff level approval because it's not a street facing roof surface, and it's minimally visible. And then the other piece of this request, if I can get the photo up, is
the roof.
To use a different style of shingle. So design guidelines talk about traditional architectural shingles or 3-tab composition shingles, and this is kind of a special style. And I do have a web page as well that I can put up that shows it on a house, what it looks like. And I don't know of any precedent for that style of roof shingle. So knowing that it is a little bit outside of the guidelines, I don't know of a precedent for it. That's the reason for my uncertainty and bringing it to you. But it seemed to be, for new construction, we want it to be differentiated from old. So if this serves to differentiate, then I think it would be okay. But I'm willing to hear disagreement on that.
I've seen this shingle on historic homes and a variation of it, very much so. Early on with asphalt composition shingles, they did similar to this, even in more of a diamond pattern, or a little wider. So I wouldn't say it's ahistorical. It would definitely differentiate it. Are you asking? Yeah. Are you asking for us to vote that it's a staff level, or what are you asking?
So you don't need to vote,
okay.
And it's not a public hearing, but if you disagree, if you wanted it, if you thought that this should be a board level decision, then you would give me that direction, and then the applicant would have to submit an application, and have a public hearing for it. Otherwise, if you agree that it's a staff level decision, then you don't have to take a vote. You can just say that.
So we could just say, hey, it's a staff level thing.
Yep, and then then we could just go handle it through the building inspection process.
Does anybody disagree with it being a staff level?
As far as the roofing material?
The skylight and the roofing material.
But then I have a question on the skylight. It's going to be a flat one, obviously.
Yeah.
As opposed to
that's all they make now. Yeah.
Oh, is that all they make?
Yeah.
Oh, anyway.
Tough to find
I did not know that. But it says it's not visible, but with the way the street is laid, is it Fifth? What is that street that comes? Fourth, yeah. Well, it's on Fourth, but what's the street that comes down?
Oh, Miller.
What?
Miller,
yeah. It's pretty visible when you're coming, down on Miller. If it was just, Fourth, but with that intersection road, it is pretty visible. Just made the comment.
Oh, yeah.
So, see, as you're coming down there, it is, quite a bit more visible than it would if you're just driving by this on the street. Because I noticed, knowing that it was there when I drove down, I saw the rectangle and just noticed it quite a bit. So, just a comment.
Got it.
The design guidelines for new construction say skylights are acceptable on inconspicuous roof slopes with the skylight close to roof plane and rectangular in shape. So that's all we have as guidance from our design guidelines.
Right. It is on a side-facing roof, but
it's a little off of visual, but my opinion is these are staff level decisions, but that's me.
Yeah, I'm content to
you okay?
Trust staff.
Okay.
Yeah,
agreed here.
Okay.
There you go.
I just wanted to make that observation.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. We're going to take a 5-minute break, if that's all right.
Yes, please.
Let's start up.
Okay, we have the Parks Committee here.
Reconvening local evaluation, National Register nomination of the Buena Vista Social Clubhouse staff. If you want to make your presentation.
Yes, thank you. So this is not a public hearing, but the board, I do recommend taking testimony. the board is acting as the local government preservation commission review of a National Register nomination. So we are certified local government, designated by the state, which means we have a preservation program, we have a regulatory board, and one of the obligations for certified local governments is to review any National Register nominations for buildings within our jurisdiction. And so the board performs that role. So our evaluation is based on criteria from the State Historic Preservation Office. So I wrote a memo with that criteria in it, and we are to provide that evaluation and provide comment to the State Historic Preservation Office, which gets passed also to the National Park Service, and then they make the final determination on whether the building gets listed on the National Register. And they have their own kind of hearings process and public meetings about that. And so that information is included in the agenda packet about when the state is holding that meeting. I believe it's later in the month of February. So the Buena Vista Clubhouse is located in Atkinson Park at the corner of Jackson and 16th. It was not originally built there, but moved to that location around 1930, as described in the nomination. And the Buena Vista neighborhood, which no longer is recognized as a neighborhood, is shown in the blue outline here. Atkinson Park is right there in green. And now that area is part of the McLaughlin neighborhood. So the Buena Vista Clubhouse was utilized as a meeting space, an event space for the Buena Vista Social Club. I'm not going to go through the whole history of the social club and the building. So it was very, very, it was very well described in the nomination document. But the building is generally intact, with very few modifications on the interior and exterior.
Most recent.
So it was originally used as a dwelling, and then moved to the site and used by the club. And there were some stairs and decks added in later years, as described. But the evaluation criteria that we're looking at today from the State Historic Preservation Office is, does the structure or site have integrity? Have there been major alterations or additions? So the building has been moved, but its significance is based on its use as, not as a house, but as the social club. And so it's still at the same site that it was used as that use, as the social club gathering space. And then, of course, there have been some alterations to the building, but it is generally intact with even some of the original windows. So the second criteria is description. Is the property adequately described? Have contributing and non-contributing features been clearly identified? The nomination document that was submitted to the state does include a very detailed description of the interior and exterior of the building. And so I think that box has definitely been checked. Significance and context. Has the appropriate criterion been used? Has it been justified? Is the context sufficient in breadth and depth to support the claims of significance? So this building is being nominated under the category or criterion A, which is its associative value. properties that are significant for their association or linkage to events or persons important in the past. So because of its linkage to the social club itself and the work that the social club did, the State Historic Preservation Office has agreed that this building is eligible for the National Register because of its association and its use. One of the attachments in your on your agenda was the guide for how to use these criteria, and that guide gives some examples of properties associated with events. And one of those examples is a building used by an important local social organization. So I think that exactly describes what we're looking at. That's pretty clear. Fourth evaluation criteria is facts and sources. Are the appropriate and best sources used, and are key dates and facts accurate? Now, I didn't go and fact check every single thing in here and every date and name, but the sources that were used were numerous and thorough. The club actually has a scrapbook that's held at the Museum of the Oregon Territory, and a lot of the information was taken from that. So we have no reason to question the validity of the facts here. And then supporting materials, adequate photos, maps, and drawings. The nomination included photos of the interior and exterior, maps of the neighborhood, the former Buena Vista neighborhood, and drawings, architectural drawings of the building were made as well to show the elevations and the floor plan. So the board can add findings to, so what we would do, sorry, let me back up. When we submit our comments and our review to SHPO, we use the form that's attached that has this list of criteria, and we can use the findings that I've written in this memo, and then anything that you would like to add as the board can be added to that before we actually submit it over to SHPO. So if you know any more facts or have more to say about the significance, the integrity, then we should add those, and then we would submit our comments directly to SHPO. That's it.
Okay. Should I take public comments now?
I think so, unless the board wants to talk or has any questions for me.
Yeah, does anybody have questions for staff, or should I just go to
the comments?
To the comments.
Go to the comments.
Okay, then technically I don't have to take these comments, but I'm going to take them. That I think they should be presented, but we'll give each person 3 minutes to make their comments. And I think I have them in order still. So I'm going to start with, I think this is right, Denise. Oh no, would it be Damon?
Damon.
Maybe it's yours. We kept flipping these around.
That was the one that was on top.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead. Thank you. Or, I don't know. You're Damon.
Yeah, Damon maybe Oregon City, also chair of the Friends of the Buena Vista Clubhouse. So first I want to
ask you something.
Sure.
And this is just a silly thing, but Kelly said it and you said it. I grew up in California, and everything.
It's Buena Vista.
And Buena. And where I grew up, it's Buena.
Correct.
And there's a street not far from where I grew up called Buena Vista.
Correct.
And so far I've heard it as How do you say
Buna.
Buna. So is that the Oregon version?
That is the social club last surviving members definition, so we're going with that.
I was just curious because I kept hearing that. No, it's Buena. Got it.
I've been corrected enough times by Denise that I got it.
What can I say? I say McLaughlin. I'm told that it's wrong and it should be McLaughlin. So.
Well, it's your name. You can pronounce it however you want.
You got that right. Yeah.
Maybe, maybe not.
Whoa. Yeah, there you go. That's good. But go ahead.
It's Mabi. No. So anyway, sorry. As I said, Damon, maybe Chair. First, I want to start by apologizing to you that this didn't appear in front of you a year ago. We wanted to move forward with a local designation and then move forward with the national designation, but the city said no. The city commission said no, they didn't want to go forward with the local designation. So we went forward with the national designation, and now it's rubber banded back to you. So that's why it's in front of you now at this point in time. Really, I don't have a whole lot to say. I'm more here to answer any questions. So it's just the area that they showed the neighborhood in basically used to be a peninsula. And it was through the actions of the social club that things like Jackson got put in, that 15th got filled in. I mean, there used to be a creek that went right on down, that's a canyon. 15th Street's a canyon. And so, that's some of the stuff they did that basically connected the city together. And then, as it says in there, things like getting the first street sweeper that wasn't somebody with a broom, those sort of things that they've done. But I'm basically just here to answer any questions you may have about the application or about the information.
So there was a bridge?
There were 3 bridges that went across
that ravine.
Reading whoever did the research and stuff on the National Register on the nomination, that's a lot of reading, but I thought it was very interesting and didn't know.
Yeah.
So the 3 of you worked on this? Is that?
There was over a dozen people contributed, but Lisa and Denise and Karen were the 3 big ones.
Or more.
Because I've done this myself before, and I know how much work is involved in doing this. It's exhaustive and it's brutal. So I applaud you for doing it, and what I read, it was very exhaustive as far as research. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anyone, does anybody have any questions? No? Thank you. Denise?
Move to the other seat since he's not feeling well. So I saw that. Anyway, Denise Mcgriff, Oregon City, and I started on this project probably about 4 years ago. And I can't begin to tell you how much microfiche I've looked at the library, but I'm glad to hear that several of you have read the nomination. I think it's exhaustive.
I was just going to say.
There's a lot of material. I did a lot of research for Christina when she submitted the information to SHPO initially, and did some research in the directories. And one of the things that I had wanted to put together was a map showing the location of where the members lived, because they didn't all live right around the Buena Vista area, but they lived all over the city. But the largest concentration lived right around where the house got relocated. The one thing I did want to add is that while the Buena Vista neighborhood is no longer a recognized neighborhood association, it still does exist as a neighborhood within the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association. So the Buena Vista neighborhood, that boundary map, they still consider themselves Buena Vista. So it's just not a recognized neighborhood association. But my association with some of you have been around, like Claire, who knew Irma Sullivan, and also several of the other members who lived right around the house, and they were in their 80s when I started working for the city. And so I got a lot of stuff that they told me about that somehow or another I managed to keep notes on. I don't know why I didn't throw them away, but it was very interesting to hear about the activities that they had there, the things that Lisa has documented in here, plus this finding the scrapbook was a big find, that they kept meticulous newspaper articles about what they did and all their activities. Irma told me about that, yeah. Irma Snowball used to be on the Planning Commission, which is how I ended up meeting her. But the real mover and shaker of this group is Mabel Hardenbrook, and she has the distinction of being the first female dentist in the Oregon City area. And she had quite a few patients, and then she moved to her office in Portland, and then she retired and lived in Portland. But her house is right around the corner from the clubhouse, and it's on the local inventory, as are several of the others that the members lived in. But what I wanted to say about, just very briefly, is that I will be going to the meeting at the end of February because I'm also going to be testifying on an MPD involving African American sites in Portland, which I also worked on to some degree. And it was very interesting that the City of Portland's Landmarks Commission is going through the same review that you were going through tonight. They did this Monday afternoon while I was there testifying at their hearing. So they went through the same criteria, and I think Kelly did a really good job of outlining what the criteria is. It's very, very narrowly focused. And I think that everything you said was very spot on in terms of this. I mean, I probably read this 20 times, and after about the last time before it was submitted, I couldn't even see straight anymore because we'd been looking at it so many times. But I think that we have a real gem in the city that with this additional information, I think more people are going to find out about its history and find out all the amazing things that these people did. Because it's pretty incredible, folks. Like you said, the bridge from the canyon, things that wouldn't have happened without these folks. So thank you for that. And
thank you.
I can answer some questions. I am listed as one of the source material people in this document. So
no, go ahead.
What are the plans for the building?
The plans?
I mean, hopefully you get the nomination or the designation. Then what?
Damon, do you want to come back?
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
I'll just wait. One of the things that we've talked about is if the nomination is approved down the road, we have a lot of opportunities to apply for grants that only apply to properties that are on the register. We definitely want to do exterior repairs. Obviously, you know about what the inside looks like, and since it was completely gutted, there is heat back in the building now. The Friends of the Clubhouse and the Oregon City Parks Foundation have raised about $5,000, and we paid for putting the heating back in and a new masthead so that it's being served. There's security lighting around it now, and there's a group of us that go by regularly, plus one of our members lives right across the street so they can see everything. So we have done some cleanup at the site. We plan on doing rehabilitation of the exterior as we get funding, and we're trying to work with the City Commission right now we're not asking them for anything. We hope to raise more money to do some of the work that needs to be done, but in terms of what the building will ultimately be used for, I think that's a decision that we need to talk to the community about to move that forward. As you know from its past use, the president of the Friends group got married there. I've been to a number of picnics. The Buena Vista Neighborhood Association used to meet there on a regular basis when we were doing the comp plan update when I first started at the city. There were yoga classes, ballet classes. People used it for family reunion picnics. I mean, it was utilized, and it actually was making money.
Right. Yeah, because when I worked at the senior center, when we were filled, I would refer them over to there. And I think the city had their Christmas party there one year.
We had a Christmas party there at one time. Yes, we did. So that's kind of what the group is thinking about at this point in time. Okay. But we're going to go step by step in terms of getting funding for each of the projects, and Todd can talk more about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Roger Fowler-Thias, I said that right? Diaz, sorry. Nah, he doesn't get to go till last. Sorry, I probably didn't say that right.
Roger Fowler-Tice, resident and president of the Oregon City Parks Foundation. And we were, I served on the PRAC for 4 years, and Denise would often come in and talk about this. And I have seen this building before and often thought, what is this? And, it should be fixed up. And the Parks Foundation's vision is to foster, for parks, trails, and historical sites, especially in the parks. So we're very honored to be part of this, and we're very happy to help put up the money, front the money to get the electrical back into it, which is very important. So
Okay.
we're in full support of this. Thank you.
Awesome, thanks. Todd?
Todd Iceland, Oregon City. We moved into the house across the street about 4 years ago and realized the building had been condemned. And my wife had attended a lot of classes there 20 years ago, and it was a viable center, and we were surprised to see it was condemned. And so we asked around and found out that the current building official knew nothing about it. He came through it and said, well, I don't know why it was condemned. It shouldn't have been, but it is now. So the electricity had been removed, water had been disconnected, gas had been taken out. So I called Denise, and she immediately organized a whole bunch of people, and we've pursued this and tried to get it back to being a viable community center, and that's the goal at the end of the day, is to have this building used again and hopefully at least generating enough revenue to support itself. The Friends group has raised money, as Denise said, to get power back into the building and provide heat in there, and we're looking at taking this one step at a time as a grassroots effort to get the...
What about structurally, though?
Structurally, it's not in bad shape. It has, it's dry, it's sound, it needs a couple new supports on the inside, but it's a wood post and beam structure. The Parks Department of the city has said they would like to see a full perimeter foundation.
Yeah.
The building official says it's not necessary for occupancy, but we're looking at doing that anyways.
Or just for the longevity, too.
Yeah, and the neighborhood association, the McLaughlin Neighborhood Association, that's something they're being very supportive of, and it's one of their goals to get this back into use.
So you're addressing some of the concerns. Actually, the only concerns that I had dealt with the fact that it was determined to be a dangerous structure by the building officials.
Well, that was...
I've seen no documentation to explain
we can't find
what
any
that
documentation, and there is none that has been found.
Okay.
That was about 6 years.
But you understand the concern would be to give it National Register status, potentially could compel the city to do what, if I'm to believe that it's a dangerous structure, could be a very expensive restoration.
We've actually had cost estimates done. We've done those, and the city has actually done some, and they vary in scope quite a bit. We've had some other contractors where they've come in closer to the low end of that, and I think those are very viable.
Very encouraging.
Very encouraging, yeah. But the city commission did not want to designate this as a local landmark because they felt they could be compelled to maintain the structure. That's why we're pursuing National Register nomination, because they can't object to that.
Right.
Are there still investment tax credit program?
Wouldn't be applicable to
the
city-owned property.
Oh.
Have you done any kind of a survey regarding mold?
There is none.
There's no insulation anywhere.
It's completely dry.
Okay. A building that's left unheated for 6 years.
Yes, and that was a concern. We haven't been through it in 4 or 5 months, but it was dry, and we removed hundreds of pounds of moss from the roof on the backside.
I was wondering about that, because when I walked around it, and it was like, oh, wow.
It had a good 4 to 6 inches of moss on the backside of the roof.
Okay.
And the roof is intact, and so.
Okay.
So we'd like your endorsement and encouragement for this nomination.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what do we do now, Kelly?
You can add any comments that you'd like to the evaluation form, if you have anything in addition to what's in the memo.
I don't know.
And then we would just send it on to SHPO.
We just send it the way it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
And their meeting is on the 27th of February.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Can we just, as a group, say that collectively? Like, this is groovy, go.
Yeah, so if we, let's see.
One comment I'd like to make is that I really am very encouraged because it was a grassroots effort.
Sure.
You know, and that makes
it's a big deal.
Big deal.
We'll also share your comments with the city commission. They're going to consider if they should provide comments. You're the review authority because we're a certified local government, but because they're the city and something is being proposed in Oregon City, they also have an opportunity to comment, as does anyone really. And so we'll just share your comments as well in practice.
So we don't need to show up to promote it if we wanted to.
I think we're here.
We'll take your written document that you're going to.
Does anybody have additional comments other than what's already been given or what's been in the nomination?
Well, I came in having read the nomination, believing that 4 of the 5 criteria on the evaluation sheet were very well documented and supported, and my only concern had to do with integrity. And that was stemming largely from the one sentence in the staff report that I read regarding the condition of the building, and that just raised questions. And I think Todd has done a good job of addressing that. So,
okay.
Are we all groovy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would just check the box for okay for
Yeah.
all of these, and we
Yeah.
would check here that it recommends that it appears to meet.
Yes.
And then I can try and get this printed off right now and have you sign it before you leave.
Sure. Or just put an X there. Yeah.
Just right.
It does say artistic.
John says groovy. Okay, let's do that.
And I love that it's John McLaughlin. That should be a press. In the state is like, whoa.
Well, a former mayor in this city has debated that with me over and over. Yeah, we used to play John.
Are you going to ask them to make a motion? Because the Landmarks Commission in Portland did.
Well, no.
It wouldn't hurt to make a motion.
Well, okay, sure, we could do it as a symbolic thing, sure.
Yeah.
Does somebody want to make a motion on this, or?
So I move we support the nomination to the National Register of Historic Places for the Buena Vista Club. Buena.
Okay, does somebody want to second that?
Second.
Okay.
We could all second it.
Board Member Blythe?
Aye.
Board Member Basinger?
Aye.
Board Member Mitt?
Aye.
Board Member Stobie?
Aye.
Chair McLaughlin?
Aye.
Motion approved.
Our last thing is approval of minutes. Does anybody have any issue with any of these minutes if you've even looked at them?
I have looked at them.
Dude, you're awesome.
I know. There was a lot of reading in our prep for this.
Does anybody have any issues? If not, does someone want to make a motion to approve all these minutes?
Sorry.
Go ahead, it's your turn.
I hate to slow down progress, but there was no actual text in the work session for April 2nd. I want to make sure that was intentional.
Because we were working.
I guess so. We don't need it written out for that.
I noticed that as well, but I figured that they just didn't need the detail.
But we had a second, right?
Sorry, can you guys remind me who
seconded it? I'll second it.
Meeting time and.
Who had the motion originally?
Oh, I thought Ken did. Didn't you?
On what?
On the minutes?
On the minutes, yeah.
Yeah, so Ken made the motion. I'll second it.
Thanks.
So if we could have a vote.
Yes.
Aye.
Board Member Sobey, Board Member Met, Board Member Blythe, Board Member Basinger, Chairman Coughlin.
Aye.
Okay. We're out of here.
Is there any communications?
Communications, I will be sending you over email information about CLG grant for this year. It's due at the very end of February, and so I'm going to be working on it before our next meeting. So I will let you know what I think we'll be applying for, what our grant-funded projects will be, and then you can let me know what you think over email and give me any suggestions. And then same with our work plan for this year. Instead of having a whole work session on it, I'm just going to send you what we didn't accomplish last year, and that'll be a work plan plus whatever CLG projects come up. And then so we can just do all that over email so that we don't have to have a whole work session on it. Next meeting, February 25th, we will have a work session about how we define new construction when there's a non-designated structure in McLaughlin that's getting an addition, for example. How big does that addition have to be for it to be considered new construction? Also, when do we consider something demolition or not as well? So if it's partial demo, what does that mean? So we'll be having a work session on that. So February meeting will be 6 o'clock. And then whatever items come in, I do expect to have potentially 3 public hearings on that agenda. So that might be a longer meeting as well.
Is there any way, I brought up earlier, and I don't know if it would be too soon, but we've had 2 different applications just this month about, conditions that haven't been addressed.
Right.
And it just, to me, it's like, why are we doing what we're doing if there's not some teeth or something in it, and we have addressed the one last month, and it has been accomplished, which is awesome that they, step forward to do that. But it just adds, it's very expensive for them, and it's just, yeah. So I don't know if that would be, you probably have enough on the work session. But I don't know if the board has the same feeling about that, but, and I don't know if there is anything we can do about it, but.
I do, that's a staff level work session, not a board.
I
agree with that statement.
To underscore the importance of that when we do grant an approval with conditions, to make sure the applicant understands that those are conditions.
Have some verbiage in it or something, and but you already have maybe, verbiage in it, but somehow highlighted or something, and we've addressed this in the past with other things, but to have 2 different ones within a month, it's like.
Right. Yeah.
I guess I have noticed
first, ask questions later.
Not to extend the meeting, but that occasionally the plans that go to the planning commission do not match the plans that we approve, or vice versa. And it's not happening like the Senate, when the Senate passes a different version, then it has to go back to House,
Right.
And so there's sometimes changes that get made after our approval that we didn't, and it goes there and they approve it, so they think they're good to go, but they don't come back. Or I think that happened with the cottages, and I think it happened with a number of other applications.
They're sure in the works.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're gonna meet all the criteria.
Do you mean that there are changes that required Historic Review Board approval, or changes that could have been done under staff purview?
At least in the instance of the cottages, there were changes that should have required a HRB review that happened after, HRB approval.
Seems that way.
Well, and sometimes, the builder's just going to kind of go willy-nilly and, I didn't know, type thing.
Questions later.
Huh?
Shoot first.
Pretty significant
Ask for
changes
forgiveness
in the
later.
site plan.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we have, since this whole composite decking thing has come up, you may have noticed that some of the applications that you all reviewed in the last several months, I specifically told the applicant, if you want composite decking, put it in your application now so that the board can approve it.
Address it
If
or
not, if you don't ask for it, then you can't just go and do it later. So that kind of thing, I think we're learning, and all the current and future applications are going to address that specifically.
Okay.
So some of this, is just like learning from experience and seeing what people are trying to do and get away with and making sure we address it earlier on. And then also, I think we can work with our building department to make sure that when they issue building permits with conditions sometimes. And so we'll just make sure that we can maybe attach the planning and HRB conditions as well, just so that the builders see it again, or if the architect didn't share it with the builder, then they, So we can't guarantee that people are going to read these things, but we can try and do more to emphasize the conditions of approval.
We understand your frustration. We feel it often.
Yeah.
If what I heard you two say though was a little bit different. It sounded like you thought staff was acting outside of our purview, approving things that you thought required board approval. So that we should probably talk a little bit more about.
Seemed that way.
I guess I don't know if it ever got approved or which. I would have to go back and look and see where the change happened.
In the site plan?
Like in the sequence of, because I know that like what got built didn't match what we approved. But then I don't know if Planning Commission approved what got built or if they approved what we approved. And then I don't know if, when it got permits or pulled permits, if they.
Yeah, it's interesting because the applicants are charged with getting approval from different agencies, and it's not, Planning Commission can't change your approval. Staff can approve minor tweaks or things that are within our authority to do so. The interesting thing, I think, with that one is that there were so many conditions of approval that to remove a building here and remove a building there, that it may have been harder to imagine what it would be like when you had a site plan that implemented all those pages. But if you think that we're ever doing anything outside our purview, please call me.
I think you guys are doing a great job.
And then we cross-check to make sure like every department signs off on all the things. The other thing I want to add before you guys close real quick is that hopefully Kelly will be here in February.
Yes.
At the next meeting, but after that, at least, Christina will be back. Robertson Gardner will be serving you in Kelly's absence, and then she'll be back, so.
As far as the next meeting, I won't be here because of the state of the city.
Yeah, the state of the city is the same night. So I might talk to Laura about potentially rescheduling if that seems to be a large conflict.
Well, I don't know about the rest of them, but the two of us are pretty involved. And, I've usually attended it every year.
Yeah. If we rescheduled, we'd probably just go like the day after. So I might be in touch with you.
I can't do it Wednesday.
Okay. So I might be in touch with you to see if there are alternative days that would work.
We try and go sooner than later because there's a timeline.
Well, that's
Yes.
true.
Oh, no, you're right.
But then we also have like application
regulations
deadlines that we've advertised.
Right.
Even Monday.
Okay.
Okay.
And let's adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did we notice any of them?